Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Wendy De Rosa, and I am here live answering some questions that I've been receiving. And one of the questions that had come in was, what's the difference between highly sensitive people, HSPs, and an empath, an empathic intuitive, which also feeds into the question of what's the difference between psychic and empathic. So I'm just going to explain a little bit here about the difference between an HSP and an empathic person, and also the overlap, because there definitely is an overlap. So an HSP, a highly sensitive person, is somebody who might be, sensitive to ambient, environmental noise or energy in their environment. Sometimes it's sounds, sometimes it's textures, sometimes it's mostly it could be loud noises, it could be ambient environments, going into places where there's too much energy or too many people. An HSP could also be somebody who feels things symptomatically in their body. They might be overly, start to have digestive issues, or they might feel overwhelmed energetically very easily. They might be sensitive to smells. They might be, really sensitive to energy that's going on around them. And the empathic intuitive is actually very similar in those regards. An empath can be very sensitive to, again, their energetic environment, noises, large crowds. They could be overly empathic in where they're absorbing energy into their body, and that can have symptoms like migraines and other kinds of headaches, digestive issues, energetic overwhelm, difficulty in feeling the difference between our emotions and someone else's emotions, loss of center, really feeling emotionally energetically overwhelmed. And the list can go on. There certainly can be more health issues that ensue. So really, they're very similar in the description of an HSP and an overly empathic person, but there is slight distinction, and that's that this brings us to the conversation of how the body's intuiting information. So when an empath, an empathic being, is perhaps operating from two very specific power centers in their body. They're operating from their second and third chakras in their body. And those power centers are the empathic power centers for everybody. We feel, in the second chakra, we feel what's going on beneath the table. And in the third chakra, we open up to feeling our environment, which helps us navigate how we're going to be in ourselves around people. So we take in information. It's like another brain. It's our instincts. We feel what's happening in our environment, and then we might self-adjust, or we establish our identity according to what we're taking in from the seen and unseen world. But the second chakra is more about feeling that underlying what's beneath the table intuition. So an empath is really operating from those lower power centers in the body, and they're feeling everything that's going on around them emotionally. They're also feeling energetically. And you may have, if you've watched any of my previous videos or been in some of my earlier courses, you might have heard me talk about, why an empath develops in a way that makes them energetically overwhelmed, or that they take on the energy of others, which is a separate conversation, but you can certainly view some of my other videos to visit that information. But in the lower chakras, if I am overly exposed in the second and third chakra area of my body, I'm absorbing too much energy in that area, and my root chakra is contracted, my spirit's going to lift higher up in my body. And when our spirit isn't grounded into the lower chakras and we're not connected to the power, then it blows open other aspects of our sensitivity. It starts to open up more of the clairaudient sense, which is hearing things, hearing guidance, hearing messages, hearing psychically. And then it opens up the third eye center in a way that might feel like there's psychic interference happening. Not always, but certainly if we're high up in the body, then the mind starts to race. The energy, the prana in this area of the body starts to become ungrounded. And when it's ungrounded, then we're not necessarily seeing clearly. We might not necessarily be grounded in hearing clearly. We might be speaking without thinking or disconnected speech. Like we're not necessarily connected to what we're who we are or speaking truth. It's just going on and on. And basically the crown chakra can really open up, which this aspect of intuition, I get this question a lot. I've been working on my empathic or grounding into my system, but what I'm finding is I'm becoming more sensitive. And what can happen is that we actually can start opening up these other aspects of intuition, which is seeing, hearing, and knowing. So feeling is in the first three power centers of the body. Seeing is your third eye. Hearing is the back of your throat chakra. And knowing is the back channel of the body that infuses grace into the center, basically the center of your soul, in the center of your being. But that information comes through downloads. It comes through a split second of a knowing. So for a highly sensitive person, sometimes that can mean that their spirit is sitting so high up in the body that these upper chakras are accelerated. They're overwhelmed. They are overexposed. There's too much activity going on in that area of the body that could lead that sense of, I'm getting a lot of interference, or the loud noises, or I'm hearing things, and again, I want to make a distinction because hearing things sometimes is your natural clairaudient intuition, but I'm talking about to a point where it feels overwhelming to the system. So what's interesting here is that all aspects, whether you're a highly sensitive person, an HSP, or an empathic person, it all comes down to grounding into the lower body, grounding into the root chakra, opening up more of a sense of self in the lower chakras, as opposed to, focusing on working on the third eye or the throat or the heart. If we're not embodying the experience of intuition opening up in the body, it can become overwhelming. It can become too much. And so the work is, how do I ground more powerfully into myself? How do I work out the energy that's blocking me from embodying my power in my lower chakras? So whether you're an HSP or an empathic intuitive, the healing work is the same. You're still working on detoxing, clearing the lower three chakras of the body and opening up more grounding in the lower body and through the grounding cord, so that there can be more of a sense of presence. When we start to bring that prana down, it's actually, there's a name for it in Sanskrit and yoga philosophy, which is called apanavayu. It's the downward force of prana. And when we start to encourage our body to have more of that apanavayu, that downward force of prana, we actually settle all the chakras. We start to connect to life force in a way that opens the central channel, but we're grounding more and bringing our prana inward into the body. And that's what really helps this overly empathic or highly sensitive aspect of self. Sometimes that, not sometimes, most of the time, that highly sensitive means there's a gift. There is a gift to be intuitive. But the work is, how do I live that and embody that and be in my power around that as I'm aging and developing and growing through life. So if this conversation is interesting to you and it's speaking to you, and you're following it, and the question is, okay, but great, how do I clear out these lower chakras? How do I embody and ground? I invite you to, I'm doing a program with the Shift Network, and it's upcoming. It starts this week, and you can go to my website. It's schoolofintuitivestudies.com, and you can learn about the programs that I have to offer that speak to this overly empathic aspect of intuition. I'll also post the link below to the program so you can check it out. And I'd love for you to join me. I wish I could say there's these quick tools I'll give you to clear your energy and not be empathic anymore. Overly empathic, excuse me. I have to make that distinction, because empathic is one thing, overly empathic is something else. I talk about that a lot in the program. So I wish I could say there were quick tools, but it is a process in retraining the energy system and learning how to heal what's held in the body. So I'm happy to guide you in that journey, and feel free to check out the link below. I'll post it in the notes and the comments, and I just send you lots of love and blessings. I hope this explanation supports you in your intuitive development and growth. Blessings to you.